Oops. Right there, ladies and gentlemen, live streaming at its best. Right out of the gate, your pal Sully is having tech issues. I had tech issues last night, and I could have let it slide, but I'm doing this one. This is a makeup podcast, and I'll explain why and what exactly that means in just a second. This is Locked On MLB.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans and hi, live streamers, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. There's my lower third. That's the proof. You can call me Sully, doing this as a live stream on the 29th day of November, 2022. We're going to be talking a little bit about one of the premier free agents, at least in terms of the year he had last year, could be heading to a major media market. And I think it's kind of a shame because I think he should stay put or do the ultimate mic drop. But the fact of the matter is, 4 huge markets within 2 areas of the country could be salivating to bring him in. And those are 4 teams that desperately need a big win. Also, we say happy birthday to the best that there ever was at his position. You can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and on Instagram. I am your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And please tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On MLB, or check out some of the other great shows on the Locked On Podcast Network, including Locked On Diamondbacks, hosted by friend of the podcast, Miller Thomas. Let me just get the business stuff out of the way. I am recording this in my free period. You can see I'm at the school. I've got this rigged up, and we're doing this as a live stream. If you're on the chat, throw in some questions or anything you want me to talk about. Hopefully you're hearing me a little better. I had a different microphone that I used last night for the show that I dropped with Miller Thomas, and everything was distorted. The sound was terrible. Miller sounded fine. There was something bad on my end. I don't know what it was, and this was coming on the heels of having tech issues with Nick Borowski. I've been having a bunch of tech problems. I just got to take a step back and figure it out. But as I said before, I am not in the business, even here in the off season, to giving you something substandard, you, my listeners, you, my watchers. So I had a little period here, and I said, you know what? I did drop the show with Millard yesterday. I am going to try to figure out what the issues are with my computer at home, or what's going on, why I'm having sound issues. But I said, you know what? I'm going to record another podcast for today. So this is kind of a makeup. The one with the sound issues is recorded. It's still out there. I could just say, hey, I'm going to give you 5 a week during the off season. But no, you're getting 6 this week. You're getting 6. Hey, it is the 29th day of November, as I said before. On this day in 1969, in Panama City, Panama, Mariano Rivera was born. And I've had I make no bones about it. I am a native New Englander who rooted for the Red Sox all those years. But I will say this. It's kind of my great privilege that I was able to watch the 19-year career of the person who was the greatest relief pitcher of all time. And, for a while I was resistant to that title to bestow upon him, because I said, yes, he's great, but, relievers like Fingers and Gossage would throw more innings. I was becoming grumpy old man. But as the years went by and Rivera's dominance never waned, we saw that it was not just the fact that he finished more games than any pitcher in baseball history, has the most saves, saves are a very flawed metric, you will have to admit. But he never stopped being a dominant closer. He really only had, when he was a starter in 1995, he was not a very good starter, so they threw him in the bullpen. And John Wetland, who the less said about him, the better, was the closer. And it became clear to everybody in their cow that in 1996, while Wetland was putting together a fantastic season, one that would ultimately culminate in him being the World Series MVP, the fact that Mariano Rivera, as a setup man in 1996, finished third in the Cy Young vote was a sign that everyone saw this guy should be the closer. When Wetland left after the World Series, they gave Rivera the closer role. In 96, as a setup man, Rivera wound up winning 8 games. Wins and losses are irrelevant for a reliever. He got 5 saves. His ERA was 2.09. He struck out 130 batters in 107 2/3 innings and only walked 34. The next year, he put up great numbers again, but he led up the home run to Sandy Alomar Jr. in the playoffs that basically coughed up the division series to Cleveland. And there was, lest we forget, some whispers at that time that, oh man, maybe he can't handle the spotlight, even though he had thrown to a 1.88 ERA during the regular season. Well, what we saw after that was a string of dominance that really is something we've never seen before. In the 1998 season, Mariano Rivera didn't lose a single game. And he did. His strikeout total was not, he wasn't striking out a lot of batters. If you actually see a lot of times there were some of his best years, he had more innings pitched than strikeouts. But nobody could hit his pitch. No one could hit his cutter. And we saw, relief pitchers flame out. Dominant relief pitchers flame out badly. And when you see sometimes the elite, this is one of the reasons why closers sometimes have a hard time getting a super long contract, is they'll have a peak that is about 3 or 4 years, and then that's it. And if you go back 5 years ago and you see who the top relievers are, and the 5 years before that, it's going to be, for the most part, a different group of closers. Think about how someone like Brad Lidge or Jonathan Papelbon were so dominant in the late 2000s, and then both were cooked by the early 2010s. Think about someone like Brian Wilson or Koji Uehara, who were both so fantastic for teams that were big time closers for World Series winning teams. And then a few years after that, they're done. Every once in a while you'll have a Craig Kimbrell who's had a nice long career, but again, he flames out. Or sometimes you'll have, Trevor Hoffman is kind of a unicorn in terms of the closer who's a dominant closer for a long, long time. A lot of times, that's, either they flame out from overuse or the batters figure them out, which I think is what happened with Papelbon. But Rivera, there was nothing to figure out. He's going to throw a cutter and he can't hit it. And we've never, ever in the history of baseball ever seen a pitcher be this dominant, sorry for the lights going out, this dominant as a closer for as long as he did. That you take away the 95 season, his rookie year, you take away 2012, the year he got injured, was having a fantastic year, but he got injured catching fly balls during batting practice. And you also you could take away 2007 because that was the one kind of lumpy year that he had. His ERA went above 3, and that's when there were some whispers that maybe it was time for Jabba Chamberlain to take over. You take those 3 years out, he has 16 years of nothing short of dominance, low ERA, low hits per inning, an ERA plus that we've never seen before, and just hand the ball to him and the game's over. Now, if you look at his career, he has the most saves of anybody in the history of baseball. He only led the league in saves 3 times. He only saved 50 or more games twice. And that was because Joe Torre, who wasn't always the best strategic manager, knew that he needed Rivera rested and ready for the postseason. And if you look at what he did in the postseason, I mean, the reason why the 2001 World Series and the 2004 playoffs were such a gobsmacking shockers that he blew those games was because he was completely dominant. He won a World Series and a League Championship Series MVP. You know what? His career ERA as a pitcher in his 19 years, his career ERA was 2.21. Do you know what his career ERA was in 96 postseason games? It was under 1. It was a 0.70. Yeah, I'm not big in the wins and losses, but he only lost one game. Okay? He pitched 96 games and saved 42 of them, but just no one could get a run off of him. Year in and year out. He just was that dominant, was that much of someone who just completely shut down the opposition. And in 2009, he pitched, 10 2/3, 50. He pitched 16 innings in 2009 postseason and let up one run. They won the World Series that year. Last time they went to the World Series. And he did so, look at, yeah, I have great memories of 04, but he did it in a way that was tough to argue against him. He wasn't flashy. He didn't show up batters or anything like that. He seemed to be a decent human being who seemed to love his job. And that's one of the things that made me hate him more. He wasn't even cocky about it. He just was on there and was like, nope, we're going to win, and we're done. So he is retired. And you know what? If he didn't injure himself in 2012 chasing for fly balls during batting practice, would he have pitched for another 5-6 years? I mean, look at his final year. His final year was 2013, okay? The Yankees did not make the postseason in 2013, so he was able to have his farewell at the end of the year. He saved 44 games, fine, I don't care about that. His ERA was 2.11. He was still one of the elite closers in baseball at age 43. I mean, could he have been one of those people who pitched into his 50s? One thing's for sure, he is going to be the greatest closer of all time. And the idea that if someone else were to even come close to what he did as a closer, I mean, it's just not going to happen. I mean, it's not going to happen that someone's going to be that great for that long. Or if it happens, it's going to be the absolute longest shot of all time. That's something I would absolutely not bet on. And if you're going to make any bets, go to BetOnline, which remains your number one place for all your online betting needs. Whether you're betting on basketball, NHL, football, college football, the World Cup, or esports, you can cover it all at BetOnline. And if you like podcasts, sports podcasts, news, information, it's all there too. Go to BetOnline.net. It's your number one place for all your gambling needs. BetOnline. That's where the game starts. So we're here. It is the 29th. We just wished happy birthday to the greatest closer of all time. Someone's in the chat. Hey, someone's leaving spam in the chat. Thank you very much for spam. But hey, Baseball and Barbecue is in town. I've been on their podcast. Greetings from New York. They're big Mets guys in New York. But yeah, the gotta give props to the great Mariano Rivera on his birthday. Am I right, fellas? By the way, check out, they got a great podcast, Baseball and Barbecue. It's fantastic. And I've been on the show a couple of times, and I've had sound issues with them too. So there you go. Hey, there's no big news so far going on. You know, as I said in the show that dropped yesterday, where the sound was less than ideal, you saw the Astros became very, very aggressive in bringing in Jose Abreu. But one of the things that may come about with that is that may prohibit them from signing, or that may be a sign that they may be moving on from Justin Verlander. Now, Verlander is the American League Cy Young Award winner. By the way, the fellas at Baseball Barbecue can't let it go. You can't let it go. They said the great Met Howard Johnson's birthday was yesterday. Oh, yes, it was. Yes, it was. Happy birthday to Hojo. So Verlander is the reigning American League Cy Young Award winner, and he is now he has won 3 Cy Young Awards. You could make an argument that maybe he should have won more, maybe he should have won less, because that one year it could have gone to Garrett Cole. Either way, it's the Coen brothers rule, and that is when you've won multiple Cy Youngs or multiple awards, you can't complain that they're not padding their resume. But the Dodgers, this is according to the New York Post, the Dodgers are they're throwing their hat in the ring to bring in Justin Verlander. The Mets are throwing their hat into the ring. The Yankees made a 1-year, $25 million offer to Verlander last year. He stayed with the Astros, and he got him a World Series championship and a Cy Young Award along the way. We're going to see what happens here. We're going to see what happens. But there are the two. Adam Scott Bristol points something out. I'm just going to go to the chat because a lot of good people are coming. Adam Scott Bristol, the Yankees have a history of signing aging aces. Kevin Brown, Randy Johnson, Chris Capuano, Sidney Ponson, Kerry Wood, Chano Park. I could go on and on. Hey, Roger Clemens 2.0, Gaylord Perry, a bunch of other ones like that. It would be the most Met thing of all time if Justin Verlander signs with the Mets and breaks down. Him signing with the Yankees, the Yankees have brought in a bunch of aces later in their career, and sometimes at the expense of young players. Because when they brought in Rick Rhoden in the 1980s, who was a solid pitcher for the Pittsburgh Pirates, it cost them Doug Drabeck, who won the Cy Young Award with the Pirates and was a kind of pitcher that the Yankees desperately needed to have. The Yankees need to start developing some aces. Severino is like the last good pitcher that they've developed as a starter, but we'll see. We'll see. James Cook has something he wants to say. He says that Jim Crane told Justin Verlander to go test the market, then come back. I think Jim Crane matches the highest offer and let the Astros keep him. That could be the case. And Jim Crane has shown that he is willing to be aggressive and willing to be someone who is willing to defend this World Series title. The signing of Abreu, in some ways, should be a message to Verlander, which is we're going for it. Now, they have Valdez, they have Christian Javier, they have the Green, all the people that I mentioned that on their very deep pitching staff, and who knows how many more years Verlander has. But worst case scenario is he is not quite. Well, worst case scenario is he needs Tommy John again. But I think that for the Astros, they should do that. They should say, yeah, go ahead, and we'll match it. Go see what's out there. Go see what's out there and let us know, and we'll bring you right back. Because this is a time for the Astros where they can put their past in the dust. And speaking of dust, they can give Dusty Baker back-to-back titles. Remember how John Elway spent his entire career being like, he can't win the big one, he can't win the big one. Then he finished his career winning back-to-back Super Bowls. Imagine that for Dusty Baker. After all these years, then he goes and he wins back-to-back World Series titles. He could go to 3. I mean, aren't right now the Astros the favorite to go back 3 straight pennants for Dusty Baker? Justin Verlander would go a long way for doing that. Baseball and Barbecue chimed in again. They said, can't see Verlander signing with the Mets, but a year ago I said the same thing about Scherzer. Yeah, this is a brand new day for the Mets. Now, of course, if the Mets had won one more game this last year, they would have been the division champs, and who knows if things would have unfolded differently. The Mets still have that sense of urgency, and maybe, just maybe they can get the band back together with Scherzer and Verlander, who couldn't win a title together in Detroit. Each of them won a title elsewhere, Washington and Houston. The Mets are a team that need to capitalize on this. They won 100 games last year. They put their chips in the center of the table. Jacob deGrom is probably going to go, probably to Texas, but who knows? Maybe he'll go to Houston. But I think deGrom is gone. And quite frankly, they can't survive. The Mets can't survive if they lose all their aces. So having Verlander and Scherzer there, yeah, it'll be really weird seeing a reuniting them there. And quite frankly, I think it's odd thinking of Verlander pitching anywhere but Houston right now. But the Mets have a sense of urgency that they need to do more than win a wild card. They need to win a division, which they have not done since 2015. They need to put 1986 in the dustbin and say, hey, we finally have a World Series more recent than that. They have a chance to be the team of New York, especially with the Yankees perfectly content with treading water. This was the year that they do this. This was the year they should have done this. Coronation of Buckshire. I hope, hey, by the way, I just said that I'm getting a little bit of an issue. Send me a message in the stream to make sure I know I'm still recording this. Just let me know, because it just said I had a little tech glitch there, just like I need on my makeup show, that I wind up having a tech issue. Anyway, I died. The Mets have to do something. Verlander is something. Verlander is a Hail Mary pass to finally win. You know, it's that sort of thing. Okay, apparently the sound is still there. Good. And so both New York teams are in need of this. The Yankees have to get off the mat. I know it's tough to say get off the mat, but do you know what? They've won one division title, or they've won two division titles in the last 10 full seasons. They haven't won a pennant since 2009. And while the Yankees are continue to make money and draw well and everything like that, you're starting to see there's some restlessness for Yankee fans. As I said yesterday, if you're a 20-year-old Yankee fan, you have no memory of your team in a World Series. Think about that for a second. Now, let's come over to my side of the country. I'm recording this from my classroom in Los Angeles County. Both teams that claim Los Angeles in their title could use Justin Verlander. Notice I didn't say in Los Angeles County, because one of the teams is not in LA County. The Angels. The Angels have the most exciting player in baseball, the best player in baseball, and those are two different people. And they are in the AL West with the Astros. So their chances of winning a division are almost zero. But do you know what? They need to get in the playoffs. They have to. If they want to keep Ohtani. And they have Trout. Trout's here for the long term. Ohtani isn't. Why would Ohtani stay in this clown show that is the Anaheim Angels, which is what I'm calling them? You know, their ownership's a mess, and they are a bad team. They are wasting the prime of Mike Trout and the prime of Shohei Ohtani. They should be signing every single pitcher they can. Because, you know, they should be signing every local. I mean, this team is such a gigantic mess that why not give it a shot? Now, there's, you know, look at the only reason Verlander would sign with the Angels is because they just backed up the Brinks truck for him. But back up the Brinks truck. You need that. Maybe Verlander can rub off on some of the young pitchers. I don't know. But the Angels have to do something other than wasting the prime of these two extraordinary players. Which brings us to the LA Dodgers, which is, quite frankly, the place I think he will land if not back with Houston. I think, Baseball and Barbecue agrees with me here. He said the Angels need to have something break in their favor. A team in Southern California should be doing well. Yeah, a team with two gigantic superstars, MVPs, should be better than a losing team. But I digress. The Dodgers are where Verlander are going to land, if not back in Houston. Now he has his supermodel wife and Kate Upton and may want to live in LA and be a celebrity and da. That could be part of it. It's always going to be about money. And as we've seen, the Dodgers have no compunction signing players. And they also have cleared off a lot of space in their payroll to bring in a big star like Verlander. And you put Verlander in this rotation alongside Kershaw and everybody else, and Urias and everybody else. Next thing you know, especially if Gonsolin is healthy, this will be another 110 wins. And fact of the matter is, he could be the latest in a parade of superstars who could be put under they played for the Dodgers in the playoffs? Albert Pujols, Max Scherzer, Jim Tomei, I bet you forgot that one, Manny Machado. There's a whole bunch of players who made one blip cameo. Greg Maddux. Those people you don't think of as Dodgers who played in the postseason with the Dodgers. And a bunch of them are Hall of Famers. Maybe Manny Machado will be a Hall of Famer eventually. I don't know. He's had a great career so far. And obviously Verlander is going to the Hall of Fame. And there's going to be a bunch of players you look like, when they play in the Dodgers in the playoffs? Really? Really? And there's a bunch of other players who had Hall of Famers who had cameos with the Dodgers, like Ricky Henderson, like Juan Marichal, like I just had another one in my head. Which one was that? Oh, Frank Robinson. Like, what? They play for the Dodgers? Yeah, for just a second. So that's good company for Verlander to be in. But it would be even better company for him if they wound up winning a World Series. A big media market's going to bring in Verlander, or he's going to go back to Houston. I think he's going to go back to Houston, but I've been wrong before. And the fact that you see these big teams with deep pockets and the ability to spend are sitting there who could definitely plug in a pitcher of Verlander's caliber, something you got to think they're going to want to do. And one thing you're going to want to do is you're going to follow us at Locked On MLB Pods and the same handle for Instagram. I am your pal Sully. I am at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And by the way, thanks for making us your first listen. For your next listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. You get all the best stories and all the expert analysis that you would expect from hosts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Check out Locked On Sports Today. They'll tell you all about the stories and all around sports and the games you shouldn't miss. Check out Locked On Sports Today on this app, on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Making it up to you. And hopefully this one sounds a little better. And bringing it home with possibilities and rumors for Justin Verlander and a happy birthday to the Hall of Famer Mariano Rivera. This has been the makeup episode of Locked On MLB for the 29th day of November, 2022. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Thanks for the people contributing in the stream. And hey, David Samuel Blam, you asked me how am I doing? I'm doing great. I just did a podcast. And you can call me Sully.